Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the 18th of November, 2013, the podcast that pays you a minimum wage. This is your host, Shane Killian. Joining me again this week is Jonathan Loche. John, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back.
Also joining us for the first time, you might know him as ANCAP Brony on the forum or on Twitter. Please welcome to the podcast, Jacob Morris.
Hello.
So last week we talked about Adobe's hideously stupid password security and all the passwords that were revealed from it, and I wanted to give an update on what we talked about. And the first is a bit of good news. If you remember, I talked about how a hacker could get the email and password of someone on the list and try it in other places, since a lot of people use the same password on other sites, like Facebook. Well, Facebook has been comparing the discovered passwords to their database, and they've been trying the email password combinations to see if they're a match. And they found several matches, which means that one of the hackers who had this database could get into that person's Facebook account, so they sent a message to everyone they found a match for, telling them to redo their password and answer the security questions and everything. So I thought that was great. They were being proactive about it.
For once, Facebook actually cares about the privacy concerns of its users.
I think Facebook cares about the privacy when it comes to other people. They just don't care as much when it comes to what they want to do with it.
Right.
But they've done some good things, too. You know, a few months ago, I pointed out how their SSL was now using perfect forward secrecy, which means that not even the NSA can get in and decrypt people's combinations because the encryption keys get discarded as soon as they're used. So no one can get that by sniffing the traffic.
Right.
Well, that's good.
So Facebook spokesman Jay Nancaro said that they're really concerned about this. He said, quote, "We actively look for situations where the accounts of people who use Facebook could be at risk, even if the threat is external to our service. When we find these situations, we present messages like the one in the screenshot to help affected people secure their accounts." And the screenshot is just what they say, you know, someone may have accessed your account, blah, 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 and you hit continue, and you can go and change your password. So, and that's good. I think we've all seen a case where we've had a friend on Facebook who all of a sudden starts posting a lot of weird stuff, and it turns out that someone got their password.
That's happened to me before. Not the most fun thing.
Also, there are reports that diapers.com and soap.com have been doing the same thing, and so hopefully a lot of other sites will be picking it up as well. Well, the other reason I wanted to talk some more about this is because we talked about stupid things to do when you're selecting a password. When I was reviewing the podcast, it occurred to me we might have left people with some misapprehensions about how to choose a strong password. And of course, the idea of this podcast is to fix misinformation, not get it. So I know this is not normally the kind of thing we cover, and I'm sorry if it's getting geeky, but this is a really important thing that people need to understand. And so I really wanted to take the time to make sure we didn't give people misinformation on it. So what I have here is an analysis by Jeremy Gosney of Stricter Consulting Group and how he cracked 90% of more than 16,000 passcodes hashed in a database. And this wasn't even done the stupid way like what Adobe did. This was using a proper password hash. And he was able to get a lot of passwords, including, get this, QEADZCWRSFXV1331. That sounds like this really crazy random password, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Nope, he got it. He got it, and we'll talk about how. So we need to talk about 4 kinds of password attacks. Dictionary attacks we talked about last week. A hacker has a dictionary of just tens of thousands of words and other common passwords, and they just try each one. The second is a mask attack. And this is where you try different combinations, like upper and lowercase or adding numbers on the end or whatever. A combinator attack where you try multiple dictionary words together. And then finally, the brute force attack where you just try every single character combination that might possibly be. So obviously, the brute force attack is the toughest one to do. That's your goal when you're selecting a password. Make the attacker resort to the brute force method. Well, what was interesting about this analysis was how easily the brute force method was used on 5, 6, and 7 character passwords. In fact, it was so easy, he said, just try that right out the gate. Every single possible combination of 5, 6, and 7 character passwords. He got 1,300 passwords in just 2.5 minutes using that technique. But what happens is once you get over 8 characters, exponential growth sets in, And that's where it starts to take days, weeks, years to crack the password. So that's the first lesson, long passwords. If you're using a short password, it's over. So he did a full brute force on the first 6 characters, which is upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Then for 7 or 8 characters, he did lowercase letters only and got another 1,600 passcodes that way. Then he did just numbers up to 12 digits and got another 300 in just a little over 3 minutes. So those really simple passwords you can brute force right quickly. Then he went to the word list and he had a rule set where he tries the words in all lowercase, all uppercase, mixed case, and with common substitutions, like you've probably seen things like replace the S with a $sign, replace E with 3, that sort of thing. Guess what? Hackers know about that and they try that. And they also add numbers to the end, because a lot of people, they'll make a password and they put 01 at the end. Or especially a lot of young people, they'll put 2014, 2014 on the end because that's the year they're going to graduate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Gosney had this list of rules that he used, and in just a few minutes, he'd gotten several thousand more passwords. So now he's got over 10,000 all total of the 16,000. That was when he went to the hybrid attack. This one took longer. It took him over 5 hours to get another 2,000 passwords. So you see, the more complex you're getting, it takes longer to get a lower yield. And so that's really the idea, is to make them resort to more and more complex measures. And one disclaimer here, this is entirely dependent on processing speed. Gosney used a single GPU to do the cracking, but if you follow the link in the story, you'll see he demonstrated a computer with a whopping 25 GPUs in it that can do something like 350 billion guesses every second. So you can read this article and see the details, but he was able to get things like there was Mom of 3 Great Kids, which was MOMOF, number 3, G, number 8, KIDS. And he got that with that combinator attack. It's a combination of words with common substitutions.
Mm-hmm.
And he had all these clever tricks to do. So you remember that one I led out with? That big, long, random one? And you're still wondering how he got that? I'm going to read it out again, but look at your keyboard while I read it. Okay? QEADZCWRSFXV 1331. You get it?
Yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah, see that pattern it makes on the keyboard?
Oh, yeah.
That's called keyboard walking. And this is the moral here. Any rule, any trick, any technique you can use to come up with a password that you think is secure is a rule, trick, or technique a cracker can use to get your password.
Yep.
So people keep asking, what can I do? If I give you a trick to come up with a strong password, guess what? Hackers are going to use it. So last week we talked about that XKCD comic with the correct horse battery staple password. And what they found is that it's actually a good idea, but 4 words aren't enough. 5 is actually pretty good, and 7 can actually be a lot better. 7's probably as secure as you're going to need for the foreseeable future, at least. And those things, as he points out, can be a lot easier to remember than this jumbled up garbage. But I do have to say I don't like the mnemonic that he gave. Because he had the picture of the battery with a staple in it, and the horse said, that's a battery staple. Correct. I'm going to give you a better method to do a mnemonic that will let you remember any length you want. 7 words, 10 words, however long you want. Of course, a lot of places won't let you put in a long password, but however long you want, make your random word list, and you can make a mnemonic like this. All right, so this is correct horse battery staple. So think about this. There's a long row of horses somewhere, and you go to the right one. So you've selected the correct horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the back of the horse, and you open up a panel, and inside the horse is a battery. That's the horse battery. And it's kind of silly, but that's actually good, because silly is easy to remember. But you'll notice that I'm just doing it one at a time. Correct horse, and then horse battery, and then I take the battery, bend it into a staple, and shove it through the paper, and now it's a battery staple. So you see what I'm doing? I'm going into sequence. And I can continue this sequence with other random words and remember any random list of words that I want. And also, this is more important, remember the order that they come in. Because really you're only doing the 2 words at a time as you link to the next one. So that's a much better way of doing it. But really, like we talked about, the best thing to do is use something like LastPass and just generate the random passwords. There's no cracking those. I mean, that's full brute force. Make them as long as you can and as complex as the website will allow you. And then you protect that with a master password, and you can use the random word list for your master password.
Right. I've started using LastPass myself, and I'm a big fan of it for that reason.
Yeah, there are a lot of other things out there that do the same, but the research I've done, LastPass has been recommended by a lot of security experts who have independently looked at it and said that, yeah, they're doing things right. They're doing things the way you need to. It never sends your password anywhere in plain text. Your passwords are not plain text on their server. The only place your passwords are decrypted into the actual plain text password is on your computer. So that's a good thing. And it's got a lot of great free features. There are browser plugins. It synchronizes across all the browsers, all the computers. And you can generate the random passwords, manage your sites. It'll even remember things like answers to challenge questions, and you can have those randomly generated too. It'll securely store credit card numbers and all sorts of stuff. In fact, you can secure any data you want to with it. And they also have a LastPass Premium, which is good if you want to use it on your smartphone or tablet. They also have LastPass for apps. Like, for example, if you're going into Skype with the normal LastPass, you'd have to go back to the browser plugin, copy your Skype password, and paste it in. They have LastPass for apps that'll do that as well. And you can also get priority support. And this is a new thing. I haven't had a chance to record a promo for it yet, but if you go to password.bogosity.tv, you can get a free month of LastPass Premium.
There you go.
So definitely check that out. You're listening to the Bogosity Podcast. You say you don't like Bitcoin? Why not? Oh, because it's not gold. No problem. Just go to coins.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to Coinable, where you can buy gold or silver coins or bars with your Bitcoins, with literally up-to-the-minute spot pricing. Now there's no reason not to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. Whether you're a Bitcoin miner, service operator, Bitcoin business owner, or market speculator, you can get gold and silver from reputable dealers. And Coinable has Bitcoin liquidity for fast processing of your order. Coinable even utilizes a special shipping infrastructure to ensure that your investment arrives safely at your door. And you know what? By going to coins.bogosity.tv, you won't pay a penny more, a Satoshi more for your purchase. But you'll help this podcast. You can even sell your gold and silver for Bitcoin as well. Coinable is your Bitcoin to gold marketplace. So go to coins.bogosity.tv and start turning your Bitcoins into gold now. Welcome back to the Bogosity Podcast. We are Shane, John, and Jacob, and I think it's high time we got into this week's News of the Bogus. So, are you guys into anime?
Oh, yes. Constantly.
Not as much as I used to be, but...
I know we have a lot of anime fans on the board. I'm not much of one. I've watched anime and I liked it, but I couldn't tell you anything about all the characters in the different shows or anything. But apparently there's one, I'm not sure how this is pronounced, but it's called Ryuki Matoi.
That's about right.
From Kill La Kill. And apparently she wears this outfit that shows some underboob, just those lower curves of her boobs. No actual nudity.
I'm familiar with that.
Well, apparently there was this anime festival in Singapore, and one girl was cosplaying this outfit. And apparently there was some kind of church event going on at the same time, in the same convention center, and this older woman was going to it. She saw this girl in the costume, and get this, she called the police.
Ooh.
That can happen.
I mean, come on, people!
I mean, you go to any cosplay thing, and I mean, that's half the fun of going to cosplay, is you see all the girls in really sexy outfits.
Yeah. Well, and it's an excuse for them to dress up sexy in an environment where it's more acceptable. So no one was arrested, but apparently the cosplayer was very shaken up by the incident. So, I mean, I just don't know what goes through people's minds like that. And yeah, I looked this up. I saw a drawing of the character, and also on one of the stories, someone posted a pic of a girl cosplaying. I don't know if it was the same girl or not, but I mean, it's really not. I mean, everything's covered up. You just see the curves underneath her boobs. That's it. I don't really get, what the big deal's supposed to be.
Some people just have problems with it. I mean, think of in the 80s, the thong with the big taboo. Although it's kind of funny because everybody wants to rank on the Americans as being the ones all uptight about sex, and Now this one happening in Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place. Yeah, but back home we've got scarier things going on. More fascism from the FISA court. Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Yahoo, and LinkedIn are suing the U.S. government for the right to publish the requests they get for user information. And good for them. So the government filed back its response, and that response is the legal arguments the government submits to the court against the plaintiffs to say these are the reasons why you shouldn't listen to them and you should rule for our side. The plaintiffs are supposed to have access to those arguments in order to have a chance to counter them, but guess what? Large portions of those documents were completely redacted. Sometimes even entire pages were blacked out.
If you're not doing anything wrong, you get nothing to hide.
We have to protect your freedom, Shane. We have to do this by blacking out entire legal arguments contrary to what the law says.
Yeah, but there are procedures for that kind of thing. If you need to file something under seal, if it's too sensitive to be released to the public, there's a procedure you can do, and that allows the other side to see the sealed court documents and have a chance to refute them. Here, the DOJ is just flat out refusing to let the other side see the arguments they're making.
Yeah, it's business as usual for this administration and the government really since 9/11. That South Park episode where the one guy just keeps on screaming, "I am above the law." I imagine this is what the DOJ lawyers must say when they have to be brought in court of this stuff. Because if you or I as a private citizen tried to do this, if you or I did this, it would be evidence tampering. If it's the DOJ, it's protecting secrets.
And so the plaintiffs have filed a motion saying either let them see the arguments or strike the redacted portions from the record, and the DOJ is opposing it. So they're actually saying that they get to make arguments that only the court can see, not the opposing party, and this goes against every principle of jurisprudence, not to mention due process and the right to a fair trial. I mean, this is the behavior of fascist dictatorships.
I mean, like I said, it's just another page out of the same playbook. And to me, like I said, I mean, we've covered plenty about how they've been hacking into people's information. At least now some people are standing up to them, which is good. I mean, I've been looking at some of the pictures, and literally, entire pages are redacted. This would be something out of a comedy sketch.
Yeah, and we've seen that kind of thing before when the Obama administration has released documents under the Freedom of Information Act, and they've been just entirely blacked out start to finish.
Well, I mean, what could possibly be on there? Did we find Bigfoot in Roswell in 1947?
Yeah, and something else going on in this country. We're in the middle of yet another movement to raise the minimum wage. And in fact, in Seattle, they're actually calling for a $15 minimum wage.
Oh my god. I mean, Dawkins.
We are the 99%. We are the unemployed.
It's coming that way.
I only just got employed. Come on.
Because, I mean, if you read even a basic economics textbook, it'll tell you that minimum wage increases unemployment, and something like 80% of economists agree with that. So it's not even just like, the Austrian economy. I mean, just across the board, in pretty much every school of economics, they all agree with this.
You mean Marxist?
Well, maybe not the Marxists.
No.
They're actually a lot more fringe than they'd like you to think.
Let's take a look at a Starbucks. You know what Starbucks is going to do if they have to pay every employee $15 an hour? There's going to be one person running the cash register, if that.
Work to death.
Yeah.
Having to do everything.
Well, no, they're just going to invest. They're just going to invest money in pretty much, and it's just going to be from start to finish, blended by a machine, and it's going to be spit out to you. And the only person who's going to have a job is the guy who's going to have to repair the machine if it breaks, and he's going to be making more than $15 an hour anyway.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you're going to pay a worker $15 an hour, that worker has to create $15 worth of wealth to the customers in order to be able to demand that salary. So that one, what do they call them, baristas or something like that?
Yeah.
Gonna have to do just everything start to finish doing the work of 2 or 3 people just to be able to have that level of productivity to demand that wage. And this is very real. This isn't just theory. Economist Robert Murphy calculated that the states that have a minimum wage that they set above the federal minimum, on average, they have 25.2% youth unemployment, while states with the national minimum wage have 21.5%. And of course, it's the youths and other people who are just entering the workforce, immigrants, people graduating college, people who have been out of the workforce for a while and coming back in. Those are the people hurt the most by it.
I mean, I can see it just even where I'm growing up. The neighborhood where I grew up wasn't the greatest, and there used to be a pretty big mall there, but when it sort of people left the neighborhood and the stores left, everybody was unemployed. And at one point, Walmart wanted to build a store there, and everybody was like, oh, all up in arms. And it ended up not coming, but, job's a job. That, would have given a lot of people, especially in my age group, jobs versus sitting around
recording podcasts all day.
Hey, neighborhood, the only people driving new cars are drug dealers and preachers.
Yep, that's how it goes. But compare it to Norway. Norway has no minimum wage. Their unemployment rate is only 3.5%. And there may be a lot of reasons for that, but if you look at McDonald's, the people who work at the McDonald's in Norway, even though there's no minimum wage, they get the equivalent of $16 to $24 an hour. And the reason why is because the cost of living is so much higher there, they demand those salaries. So this whole thing about, we need people to be paid a living wage, that's a problem that takes care of itself if you just stay out of it.
Or even if, a little closer to home. What is it, North Dakota, where the big fracking boom is going on right now? You get burger flippers at McDonald's who are making $16 an hour, all on their own, because that's they just are demanding people to have these jobs.
And so the more jobs you have, the more money you have to offer people in order to get people to come in to fill those jobs. Whereas if you've got a lot of unemployment, people are going to be willing to work for less money, and so you drop the wages down in order to get employment back up. I mean, this is a price floor. I don't get why people, and a lot of these are the same people say, oh, no, you shouldn't have government price support, because look what it did in World War II and look what it did all these other times it was tried. Okay, but why all of a sudden does that stop working with wages? Why doesn't it, what happens to the laws of economics that makes them magically disappear here?
That's just it. They don't think. Well, actually work as a nurse's helper. And even though Rose likes me a lot, if it goes up to 15, I don't think she'll be able to help me. I don't think she'll be able to keep me employed.
Yeah, and I mean, this is going to be the case with a lot of small businesses too, which is why a lot of big businesses like Walmart, they lobby for the minimum wage because they know they can afford to pay their workers that much, but they'll put the smaller competition out of business because they won't be able to afford to hire people anymore. You're listening to the Bogosity Podcast from Bogosity.tv. Bogosity.tv and all of its services are hosted at GoDaddy.com. I've been a satisfied GoDaddy customer for over 10 years now. Their prices are great, and their 24/7 support is second to none. So I'm happy to be able to give you this special offer. Just sign up for any new domain, web hosting, email, or many other services and get 20% off by typing in the code WOWNOBOGON. That's WOWNOBOGON. Because there's nothing bogus about these savings on quality internet service. Get your own .com with a personalized email address or establish your online business in a snap, all for 20% off. And you'll help this podcast too. Just go to GoDaddy.com and use the code WOWNOBOGON. History is written by the winners, and so apparently is economics. That's why there's Liberty Classroom. Probably the best single learning resource for history and economics on the web, Liberty Classroom teaches U.S. history, Western Civ, and economics from actual university professors. There's lots of free material to get you started, including introductory lectures on all these subjects. And when you sign up, you'll get the full site's content for just $99 a year, less than the price of 2 cups of coffee a month. And if you type in the promo code Bogosity in all caps, you'll get your first year for just $88. Lectures are available in both video and audio format, so you can watch or listen to them on your computer, your phone or tablet, or in your car. Learn at your own pace about the subjects you're interested in and become a more effective debater. You'll also get access to lots of supplemental materials and even the professors themselves via the discussion forum and even live video chats. Inform yourself against the myths and propaganda of our society. Visit libertyclassroom.com. Welcome back to the Bogosity Podcast with Shane, John, and Jacob, and this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And you can probably see this one coming. Yes, it's Barack Obama again.
Oh, Lordy.
So remember how we were talking about how the Obama administration knew all along that millions of Americans wouldn't be allowed to keep their health care plans under Obamacare?
I think I see where this is going.
Yeah, Obama has actually come out and compounded that lie. Quote, "What we said was you could keep it if it hasn't changed since the law was passed." And he said this in a speech last Monday to 200 supporters. The thing is, no one can find one instance of him actually saying that. Not once, not ever, until all this came out. And all the videos of his speeches where he keeps promising you can keep your insurance plan, not once did he say, if it hasn't changed.
There's a good Daily Show segment on that, too, and it's just sort of like, it has a great little segment, something to the effect of, at this point, he's sold so many Whoppers, he's now the Burger King.
Yeah.
In this day and age where literally everything he says outside of his own bedroom is taped and shown to the public, did he really think he could get away with saying that?
The sad part is he does seem to be getting away with it. I mean, this is another Teflon president here.
You know, and the sad fact is, there are now millions and millions of people who expected to have their plans grandfathered in, and, you know, now they have the SOL plan.
Yep, something like 3.5 million of them. Maybe even more. So listen to his pathetic excuse. Quote, "We would have broken an even more important promise, making sure that Americans gain access to health care that doesn't leave them one illness away from financial ruin."
What, financial ruin, access and financial ruin, how? I'd love to see him define all that.
I don't know. It just means the government knows better than you which healthcare plan is right for you. Which is exactly what they said they wouldn't be doing.
Oh, yeah. You know, the House actually passed a bill for, like, if you lost your insurance, you can get it back. Well, the House Republicans passed it. Obama said he would veto it, though.
But, I mean, this got huge applause from the audience, despite the fact that he just admitted not only that he had lied the whole time, but he admitted that the whole point was the government knows more than you about what features your healthcare plan should have. I mean, does anyone still doubt our use of the phrase cult of the omnipotent state?
And that's the sad thing is that so many people just, well, the government has to do it. It is a lot like religion, just because the old seen versus the unseen. It's very easy to come in and see the government saying, look what we've done, we've made it better. But it's very hard to see how it's not very hard to see nowadays how they've made it worse, but because not everyone is affected equally, it doesn't quite,
It kind of reminds me of what Harry Brown said about government breaking your leg, then giving you a crutch and saying, look, we're us, you wouldn't have that crutch.
Yeah, without us, you wouldn't be able to walk, even though we're the ones that broke your legs. And Obama really came out and told them to just gloss over all these problems whenever people point them out, by focusing on the good news stories. So, I mean, he just might as well come out and admit that he has no response to them, that there absolutely is no defense to them whatsoever. And here's what he said, quote, "I realize that can be scary for people if they just get some notice like that. We've got to make sure that we're getting them the right information." Well, yeah, that would be a nice change of pace, wouldn't it?
It would be, if that was at all legit.
Yeah. They're just trying to get their news spin and new misinformation going to counter all these negative stories. Because another promise was, your bill's not going to go up, but now he's saying, quote, "Some Americans with higher incomes will pay more on the front end for better insurance with better benefits and better protections that could eventually help them a lot, even if right now they'd rather be paying less." So Obamacare makes your health care cheaper, except when it doesn't. Nice.
It works all the time. 40% of the time.
Yeah. But they are going up, and it's not just people with higher incomes. I mean, there's just no way around it. Obama is a liar, and the people who continue to support him are mindless, unthinking automatons. And the fact that he continues to get away with it is outrageous.
That may sound inspirited, but it's actually true.
So when do we start building his spot in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, let's start erecting a statue to him so we can tear it down later. So once again, Barack Obama stands head and shoulders above the rest as this week's biggest Bogon emitter. So now let's stare slack-jawed at this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And this week, it's CBS Sunday morning commentator Faith Salie. And I'm actually going back several months to pick up this story. But since we've been talking about password security, I thought I'd dig this up and give this stupid woman the thrashing she deserves. So we've been talking about how to actually make a strong password. This is the kind of thing that happens when people try to give password advice without knowing what they're talking about. And trust me, there are a lot of people out there like this, so...
The CBS Sunday Morning, does anybody under the age of 50 watch that show? And unfortunately, that's the thing, is that, you're talking about the most technologically literate segment of the population talking to each other, and this is what happens.
Yeah. So let's see how moronic her advice is, keeping in mind all the things we talked about earlier. Quote, there are many suggestions for creating a hacker-evading password, like replacing vowels with numbers to add what's called entropy, or 3NTR0PY. Oh, come on, they'd crack that one in 5 seconds. I mean, remember the mask attack we talked about earlier? That would totally get this when you've got a common word with 2 very common substitutions. Come on, give us a challenge here.
I still don't completely understand it, but still...
Yeah, I mean, it's just you take... Entropy will be a word... It's a common word. It'll be in any dictionary list. And when they try it, like I said, they try things like uppercase and lowercase, and they try the common substitutions. So they'll try 3NTROPY, ENTR0PY, and at some point they'll hit on that combination because those are just common things. They just try one after another until they get the right one. She went on to say, quote, another tip is to abbreviate expressions so that the early bird gets the worm becomes TEBGT capital W period. You could brute force that one too quick to talk about. Long passwords, people, not little short ones. Quote, so passwords are passé and passphrases are the new black. Make that capital B, lower L, @ open parentheses, K. No, don't make it that, because they can get that in a minute or two. And don't use passphrases. Use a quality password manager like LastPass, and use one of the random word list passwords like we talked about to secure it with your master password. Oh, and listen to this one, quote, and passwords may not even protect us from hackers, according to some experts. No, according to no experts. Maybe stupid, useless passwords like the kind this idiot woman is telling us to do.
I should think they might just make up the fact that some experts say when there's really no experts at all, like economics, politics.
Yeah, it's one of those weasel words. Studies show. Okay, which studies? Can I have some references here? Because she even says things like, quote, they call password security theater. No expert calls password security theater.
No, nothing, just the idiocy of some of this.
And she's even complaining about the security questions. Quote, name the street you lived on as a child. Well, what if your parents were divorced with joint custody? Are you now faced in middle age with choosing your dad's home over your mom's? Well, actually, that puts you in a better situation, because if you pick the one you can remember, that's one bit of entropy, because anyone who tries to crack that passphrase and tries to research about you to do it, which they're not above doing, I can tell you that, and they find out that you had these 2 addresses, they don't know which one you picked, so that's one more bit of entropy. But to be honest, just generate those with LastPass too. Put in random blobs. Salie, stick to comedy. Actually, if this wholly unfunny rant is typical of your pieces, then maybe you just ought to switch to flipping burgers or something else that doesn't require any actual talent or smarts.
Once they reach the minimum wage 15.
Yeah, then she will be out of a job. Well, hopefully no one actually took her advice, but still, it does secure Faith Salie's position as this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this You Deserve a Break Today edition of the Bogosity Podcast. Please visit the forums of Bogosity.tv, where you can read the show notes and join the discussion on these and other subjects. This podcast is free but not free to produce, so please donate via PayPal or Bitcoin at the top of the Bogosity.tv website or down the right-hand side of the podcast page, and give generously to keep this podcast going. And if you'd like to contribute to the podcast, just send a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@Bogosity.tv. Put it in an audio file, and if it's good enough, it'll get played right in the podcast. Thank you for listening, and thanks once more to my co-hosts, Jonathan Loche and Jacob Morris.
Nice.
See ya.
Until next time, here's a quote from Eliezer Yudkowsky. Politics is an extension of war by other means. Once you know which side you're on, You must support all arguments of that side and attack all arguments that appear to favor the enemy side. People who would be level-headed about even-handedly weighing all sides of an issue in their professional life as scientists can suddenly turn into slogan-chanting zombies when there's a blue or green position on an issue. The Bogosity Podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License.
Bogosity.
Christmas time is coming, and the most classic of Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol. But how much do you know about the original Charles Dickens novella? Have you dismissed it as a children's book with one-dimensional characters amounting to nothing but platitudes and cliches? Maybe your appreciation of the book was even muted by those dry, boring, annotated books they made you read in school. My book, the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, uses both facts and humor to present the book in a way you probably haven't seen it before. Giving praise when deserved and beratement when warranted, this book is put in the perspective of its time and shows a dimensional, multi-layered Ebenezer Scrooge from start to finish. Skepticism, history, and even economics are employed to show the book in relation to today in an easily accessible format. Appreciate the Christmas of your youth all over again. Get the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, available at Amazon and on PDF as well.
Somebody sell me a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Seriously, 400 Federal Reserve notes. First person who can send me a PlayStation 4.